Hello everyone, we are from Group E, and today in this video we will have our group presentation, and for today topic is stress in complex words. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Bagus Indrajaya, and my friend there are Dewi Aisyah, Danti, and Anafa. Okay, for the first slide is complex word. I will explain to you what is complex word. In the study of morphology, a complex word is a word made up of two or more morphemes. Contrast with monomorphemic word. A complex word may consist of first a stem or root and one or more affix, and for example, quicker. Second, more than one stem in a compound. For example, blackbird. So what is the making the word is more complex? So a higher total score indicates more complex word combination than a lower score. So the more total score is indicated more complex. So if the word have a higher total score, it will get more complex. Okay. The presence of affix affect the stress placement. For the next slide, it will explain by Dante. Thank you.
Okay, so the next is going to be affixes and stress. Affixes can affect the placement of stress in a word. Affixes consist of prefix and suffix. So, how many ways that affix can affect the placement of stress in a word? There are three ways. The first one is the stress moves to the affix. The second is the stress remains on the stem and on the same syllable. And last, the stress remains on the stem but moves to a different syllable. First, the stress moves to the affix. In this kind of position, the affix receives the primary stress. For example, in the word personality, the stem is person. The affix is led. It's considered as suffix. So if you spell person, then the stress is going to be in the first syllable, person. But if the suffix exists, the stress moves from per to na. So it's going to be personality. Let's move to the second way. The stress remains on the stem and on the same syllable. The word here is stressed as if the affix were not there. For example, like in the word unpleasant. The word unpleasant has prefix an, so the stem is pleasant. Here, the affix is not stressed. It's considered as if it's not there, so the stress remains on the stem and on the same syllable, ple, unpleasant. Next, the stress remains on the stem but moves to a different syllable. So here, the stress remains on the stem, not the affix, but is shifted to a different syllable. For example, in the word magnetic, the stem is magnet. The suffix is ic, magnetic. The stress moved from mag to net. So if there's no suffix, you're going to pronounce magnet. But if there's suffix, you're pronouncing it magnetic. The stress is in the syllable net. Next, I'm going to describe how suffix affects stress placement. Some English suffixes affect stress placement in different ways. The first one is primary stress on the suffix, secondary stress on the stem. So the primary stress is on the first syllable of the suffix. If the stem consists of more than one syllable, there will be a secondary stress on one of the syllables of the stem, but it's never on the last syllable. Like, for example, in the word refugee, the stem is refuge. The suffix is E. In the word refuge, the stress is in the last syllable, fuge. But in the word refugee, stress is in the suffix E. So the primary stress is on G, the secondary stress is on ref. Then the next way is primary stress remains on the stem. So the suffixes do not affect stress placement. For example, like in the word comfortable. The stem is comfort and the suffix is able. Here, the stress remains in the first syllable. It doesn't change. It's in the syllable come. So if you pronounce comfort, the stress is in come. And if you pronounce comfortable, the stress is still in the come. The third is primary stress moves from one syllable to another, but still on the stem. Here, primary stress is on the last syllable of the stem, like in the word advantageous. From the stem advantage, the primary is in the syllable van. But if there is suffix added, the stress is in the syllable k. So before the suffix exists, it is pronounced advantage. After the suffix added, it is pronounced advantageous. The stress is in the last syllable of the stem. The explanation of the next material is going to be explained by Dewi Aisyah.
Okay, let's look briefly at prefixes. How prefix affects stress placement. Actually, there's not any stiff rules for the stress in prefixes. Even though prefixes play an important role in the meaning and formation of the words in English language, but it's quite hard to show the stress position in the words. Their effect on stress doesn't have the comparative regularity, independence, and predictability of suffixes. There is no prefix of one or two syllables that always carries primary stress. So, the best treatment seems to be said that stress in words with prefixes is governed by the same rules as those for polysyllabic words without prefixes. So, you can see the previous material for this one. Okay, let's move on to the stress placement in compound words. There are several types of compound words here. The first type is the most familiar type of compound. It actually combines two nouns and normally has the stress on the first element or the first syllable. For example, in the word sunrise, so the stress in the first syllable sun. Another example is the word typewriter, so the stress is on the first element type. Next is the compound word with an adjectival first element and the participle ed at the end. Actually, this has the pattern with primary stress on the second word and secondary stress is on the first word. For example, is the word heavy-handed. So the secondary stress is the first word ha, and the primary stress is on the second word hand. Okay, the next compound word actually combines number and noun. It is actually has the same pattern with the previous one. The primary stress is on the second word and the secondary stress is on the first word. For example, in the word second class. So the primary stress is class and the secondary stress is sir. Next is the compound word with any word class, but the combination serve as adverb. So it usually has a vinyl stress. The primary stress is placed on the second word and the secondary stress on the first word. For example, is in the word downstream. So the primary stress in stream and secondary stress is in down. The last one is the compound words with adverb and any word class, but This combination serves as verb. The primary stress is placed on the second word and the secondary stress is on the first word. For example, is the word downgrade. So the primary stress is on the second word grade and the secondary stress is on the first word down. Okay, that's all from me. The next slide will be explained by Anna.
So, I am Anava Petra Mariska. I would like to explain about complex stress words lebih. Jadi di sini aku akan menjelaskan beberapa kesimpulan kompleks stress words lebih yang telah dijelaskan oleh tim saya. Kali ini saya akan menjelaskan mengenai exception. Nah, di sini kita lebih menyimpulkan apa yang telah kita pelajari sebelumnya dari kompleks stress word. Yang pertama, stress word itu tidak selalu mengikuti rules. Karena apa? Ketika kita selalu mengikuti rules bahwa seperti misalnya stress word itu selalu spoken louder atau selalu mengikuti beberapa komponen seperti yang complex word di noun, adjective, and verb, tapi itu sebenarnya tidak selalu mengikuti rules-nya telah dijelaskan di poin pertama. Itu ketika dilakukan mengikuti rules itu banyak sekali yang have been previously explained dan sudah dijelaskan sebelumnya. Tapi ketika tidak itu karena ada beberapa alasannya teman-teman. Yang pertama itu karena tempatnya berubah. Itu tergantung dengan environment surrounding the word atau dari lingkungan kata-katanya itu bagaimana, yang setelahnya dan sesudahnya itu kita harus memperhatikannya. Itu alasannya yang pertama. Lalu the reason yang kedua itu karena itu setiap speaker itu mereka berbicaranya berbeda, maka terjadilah placement change yang diucapkan oleh beberapa speaker. Itu tergantung oleh speakernya. Maka kalau beda speaker, beda lagi mereka mengucapkan kompleks stress word-nya. Oke. Baik, kita mungkin bisa next slide ya teman-teman. Oke. Nah, di sini kita sudah lihat itu kesimpulannya kenapa, dan kenapa sih kalau placement stress word itu nggak bisa selalu mengikuti rules ya kan. Itu ada beberapa alasan. Pertama itu mungkin placement dari lingkungan seluruh kata-katanya itu mungkin berbeda, itu tergantung. Dan juga yang kedua, alasan yang kedua karena speakernya itu juga berbeda. Dan di sini kita lihat itu the term word class pair refer to two words with identical spelling but different stressment. Nah, ini maksudnya apa? Itu kalau word class pair itu ketika kita melihat dua katanya itu mengidentifikasi spelling tapi placement stressnya berbeda. Kok bisa berbeda? Ya, for example, kayak misal contohnya abstract. Itu abstrak di vocabulary ya, kalau di vocab kita lihat dictionary itu ada dua, ada noun dan juga ada verb. Oke. Dan lihat di sini abstract, adjective and noun. Terus abstrak yang kedua itu adalah verb, abstract. Lihat kalau yang abstrak, adjective dan noun itu ditempatkan di silabi yang pertama, abstract. Jadi stresnya itu ada di pertama. Kalau ada koma ini di atas, berarti dia adalah stress first primary stress. Jadi dia ada di pertama. Kalau yang di verb itu dia ada di second syllabi ya. Berarti ini letaknya di second syllabi. Nah, inilah yang menjadi alasan, the reason bahwa change in stress placement itu bisa mengefek kepada kata suku kata kelas ya. Jadi yang dari abstraknya first syllabi bahwa ditempatkan di first syllabi di adjective dan noun, tapi kalau kita menempatkannya di second syllabi maka itu menjadi verb. Nah, inilah aturan yang harus kita lihat. Itu yang pertama, if the word class itu adalah kata kerja maka ditempatkan di second syllabi. Tapi Kalau itu bukan verb, misalnya noun or adjective, biasanya stresnya itu ditempatkan di silabi yang pertama. Baik teman-teman, itu saja kesimpulannya. Semoga kita bisa paham mengenai primary stress word in syllabi. Maksudnya stress word in syllabi. Semoga kita bisa paham lebih lanjut mengenai aturannya dan alasannya dan juga bagaimana kita membedakan silabi berdasarkan suku katanya. Baik, terima kasih. Sekian dari saya. Saya mewakili kelompok E. Mohon maaf jika ada kesalahan kata maupun ucapan. Thank you so much for the opportunity for us in this assignment. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.